Hello everyone, and welcome to the ASMR review show. For this video, I'm going to be trying something a little bit different. It's a tier list video, which I know is still such a hot topic. Tier lists, everybody loves them. And for today's tier list video, we're doing a tier list of all of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard's studio albums that have been released as of mid-November 2023. Maybe they'll drop a surprise album by the time I've posted this video. Maybe there'll be an album announcement by the time this video is done. I don't know. But yeah, having done reviews of all of the albums overall, let's do a tier list for a general overview of these albums. So, yeah, we'll see how well this goes. I'm trying something new with the recording and the setup. I mean, there's all these people on the internet that make it seem effortless, and I know that's also because they pay people to do this stuff for them, and I am a very DIY one-man show. That's not really how I roll here. Yeah. So, let's get into it then, shall we? This is going to be a tier list in terms of how these albums are in terms of a King Gizzard album, which is different than how these albums actually are, because I'd like a more widespread distribution of the data, shall we say. Because otherwise I probably would rank most of these in S or A tier because I'm a fanboy. So we're going to start off with 12 Bar Bruiser. This is their first debut album, again only studio album, so no Willoughby's Beach. But for King Gizzard, and for me personally, 12 Bar Bruiser is a D tier album. I like the sound, the style to it, very fun garage rock overall, but it's just not the best. They've gone and done far better things than this album. I don't really listen to it too much unless I'm going through listening to an all King Gizzard album sort of thing, which I don't for this one. So yeah, only a D tier for 12 Bar Bruiser. Next in the order we have is Butterfly 3000, which was one of their first main electronic albums from 2021. And that one for me is going to be, we're going to say it's Butterfly 3000, so B for Butterfly 3000. It's a very good album. I really like it. The style's very good, but I don't listen to it too often, and it's just, for me, King Gizzard has better stuff. You will see that I am more into the hard rock heavy metal side of King Gizzard. And so, yeah, those albums will get up higher because I'm very heavily biased. Next up we have Changes, right, which was the final of 5 albums released in 2022. And, well, Changes, it's in the name, it gets a C tier. This is a very good album. I feel it was overshadowed for me by some of the other 2022 albums. And I don't listen to it too much, but it's fun, it's cool, it's enjoyable. There's a lot of good songs. I'm hoping, the more they tour, the more they play songs from this album live. So yeah, again, to reiterate, just because it's C tier here doesn't mean it's a C tier album. Most of these are all A tier, B tier at the very minimum, but that wouldn't really make for a fun list if I put them all in one. So we're going to be, in terms of a King Gizzard album, it's decent. And then we have Eyes Like the Sky, which is King Gizzard's second album, more of an EP, but it does count as a full album. For Eyes Like the Sky, that one, we're going to go C tier for that one. I put it over 12 Bar Bruiser because it's got a fun concept and style to it, and the whole audio narration, Western audio drama book thing is pretty cool, especially that it was Ambi working with his dad for that one, R.I.P. So it's a fun concept to it, and I like it. I'm just not going to listen to it too often, obviously. But I like that they took this whole audiobook drama thing and ran with it for future albums. So, you know, it's a very niche album, shall we say. Then we have Fishing for Fishies, one of two 2019 albums that seems to purely exist as contrast to another one. Fishing for Fishies. We're not starting this list off strong, I find, but that's because we're going to have other stuff that gets placed up higher. For me, Fishies is also C tier. There's a lot of great tracks on here, like the title track, Acarine, Psy Boogie, but it's one that I don't really come back to that often, personally, and I know already I've offended a lot of people with this list, you know, but again, I like all of these albums. It's just a matter of the tier list in terms of King Gizzard albums. And yeah, to me it's like sandwiched in between a lot of other really great King Gizzard albums for the time it came out. And I don't come back to it that often, save for a couple of tracks. And yeah, obviously there's a 2019 album that these guys did that I like a lot more. So yeah, that's how I feel about that one. Then next we have Float Along, Fill Your Lungs. And that one, ooh, it's tough for me, but again, that one's going to go in C tier as well. We're getting all of the C's out of the way first, I'd say. Because while this does have, of course, the big epic Head on Pill and the epic closing track, Float Along, Fill Your Lungs, and Let Me Mend the Past, very fun song from Ambi. It doesn't have too much else going for it for me personally, so it's fun that it's the big trippy LSD acid album. But again, apart from a couple of songs, I don't come back to it much as an album overall. So yeah, it's, again, I think it's a step up from those first couple of albums, but not too amazing. Yeah. But then we're going to jump quite high in quality because we have Flying Microtonal Banana, the first of their Microtonal albums. And yeah, that goes into S tier because it's amazing and I love it. Obviously, the song Rattlesnake, pretty epic. You know, it says Rattlesnake almost 100 times for like 8 minutes. And I play this song for people and it becomes an earworm or an ear snake. And then they just can't get it out of their heads. So I love it. But just the whole concept is really fun. You know, this microtonal music with the kind of Turkish-inspired sound. And it's very doomy and gloomy about like nuclear annihilation, toxic waste, hazardous sludge. Very fun topics. So I like that it's not just that the music's microtonal, but that it's microtonal, kind of heavy, kind of doom metal, you know, Doom City. Yeah, so definitely one of my favorite King Gizzard albums. Many fans would agree it's one of the best ones. Yeah, I was hoping they would do more microtonal stuff because of how good this album was, and they did. Next after that we have Gumboot Soup, the final album of the 5-album 2017 stretch, and that for me is a B tier album. It's the B-sides album, so it goes in B tier, right? It's it's got a lot of good tracks on it. Great Chain of Being, The Wheel, Beginner's Luck. So that's fun. It's kind of all over the place, but it's kind of cool, you know. So I like that for what it is, you know. A lot of good tracks on there, and it's got a fun vibe. Not the best King Gizzard album, but some pretty good stuff. So it is B tier. Then we have what is the first of many jammy Giz albums, which is Ice, Death, Planets, Lungs, Mushrooms, and Lava, which is a tier album for me because I really love this one. I love the sound they had going for it. You know, it was a big celebration of the fact that they could finally get back together and get all those creative juices flowing again. And I love the concept, this idea of each song being in a different mode of the musical scale, right? Ionian and all that, and Dorian, Phrygian, right? Very fun concept, leading to some pretty, you know, unique sounding songs, because in popular music you don't have many songs that are written in all of these odd key modulations and the modes. So that was real fun for that. Really love Galisa 710, which is in Locrian. Is it, I believe? There's Locrian and Lydian, and Phrygian, right? The real weird one. That's hard to write music in. That's what I like that one for. It does slightly suffer from the Grateful Dead problem, as I call it. That is that the studio tracks feel more like they're the blueprints for the actual songs, right? Especially with Magma, which I love Magma on here, but so many live versions of that blow it out of the water. But that's kind of the point, you know. It's like the Grateful Dead. Nobody actually listens to studio Grateful Dead. You have the studio versions, which is the band saying, this will be the blueprint for what we'll be doing live. And then you find that one show from '88 where they were on like pretty good acid for that night, and it's a real great show, you know. So yeah, it's real fun, and I like it, and it is good. It is A tier for me. Then we have I'm in Your Mind Fuzz, which was probably the first pretty big, well-received King Gizzard album, and many people would say it's the place to start for them. For me, I do really like this one a lot, but I don't love it as much as the other ones, but it is a fun sound, so for me it's going in B tier, which I know is probably controversial because some people would put this as a S tier album for them, but it is not for me. But that's not to say I don't like it. You've got the Mind Fuzz Suite, Am I in Heaven, Slow Jam, Satan Speeds Up. A lot of really great tracks on here. I like its very over-the-top retro sound with all the unnecessarily over-the-top studio panning effects. So that's pretty good. But it's just, for me, there's King Gizzard albums that are better. So it's B tier for me. Next we have Infest the Rat's Nest, the 2019 thrash metal album. That's an S tier for me. No contest, I'm not going to make a joke about that. I love heavy giz. I like my heavy metal, and my hard rock, and my doom metal, and my thrash metal, and this album is the one that got me into King Gizzard. I had heard of this band for a long time, but not actually checked them out. And then I hear that they've gone and made a thrash metal album. Wow, why is it this band that doesn't make thrash metal is making better sounding thrash metal than all of the actual thrash metal bands? I don't know, but they did it. It almost stole some of the thunder away from me fanboying over Tool's new album at the time. Yeah, so it's got a fun concept, but it's still a nice short pace. It's like barely 30 minutes long. Perfect length. I love how Giz doesn't make their albums too long for the most part. They've kind of gotten more into the double album thing as of late. But at the time, 2 sides, 2 bits of music, that's it. So yeah, that's a fun concept about, Earth being left by the rich with the poor to starve, but then they get on a rocket ship and they burn up in Venus's atmosphere, but then Satan is so impressed by their hatred he lets them come back to the world so they can go kill all the rich people on Mars. Yeah, it's a pretty fun album. I like it a lot. One of my favorite Giz albums, so no surprises if you can guess what other album's going in the S tier later. Next we have KG, which is one half of an album. There's also LW, and the question is, can I rank these both as one album, or do I have to rank them separately? Because if I can rank them both together as one, it's an S tier album for me. But if I have to rank them separately, then I think they're both A tier. That's tough for me, but you know what? They did just put out a double album version of this. I know they were not released that way, and every band has their separated at birth albums, but I'm counting them as one because it's my list, so they're both going together as one in S tier for me. If they had to be separate, they would both individually be in A tier. Make of that logic what you will. And why? Well, because it's like a big giant double album full of angry, doomy, microtonal music. It's everything I wanted them to do with another microtonal album after they did Flying Microtonal Banana, and I got exactly what I wanted. It was a very relevant time as well. KG was the first new King Gizzard album I heard, and with so many lyrics talking about pandemics and dumb people and frustration at the situation our world was in, keeping those themes from Infest the Rat's Nest going on, it really resonated with me on a personal level. And these were the albums that helped me cling to my sanity of hoping to eventually see Giz live, because during this time I had originally I was supposed to go see them in 2020. Didn't happen until late 2022. I'm glad that finally happened, but yeah, so I like the music because it's microtonal and it's doomy and it's heavy and it's experimental, and I like the lyrical content and the concept. So yeah, it's top tier Giz for me. My favorites are the microtonal stuff and the heavy stuff, if you haven't noticed. So probably an unpopular opinion. Lots of people don't really dig LW, but yeah, for me, this pair of albums is where it's at. Next we have the Not EP Laminated Denim, which is 2 15-minute songs to total 30 minutes, and it's a spiritual successor to another album we'll get to later on. Or why don't we just get these two over with right now, shall we? Because again, it's kind of a yin-yang thing, right? You got Timeland, which is 2 15-minute electronic songs meant to be countdowns for their musical the intros to the shows or the intermissions. And then Laminated Denim served as a spiritual successor, but also a prequel because it's the land before Timeland. Only that album is a little more, gives me kind of 70s retro space rock prog vibes. So they're both very good, but how are they as albums? Well, it's funny because I do listen to Timeland a lot, actually, but mainly because it's just good to count down stuff. If I know I only have half an hour to do a certain task, I like to put on Timeland to help keep the clock going, shall we say. So for me, you know, it's actually more of a C tier album in that way, because that's really why I'm listening to it. And it just feels more like a collage of like these different ideas and sounds. Yeah, so C tier for Timeland, but Laminated Denim, we'll give that one a B tier, because I think it's pretty good. You know, those two songs are more like proper songs for me to listen to and enjoy. So yeah, pretty nice stuff indeed. And I mean, Hypertension's great. It just feels wrong to rank it as high as other albums because it's kind of cheating because it's only 2 songs, right? So we'll give that one a B tier. But next then we have Murder of the Universe, which is S tier for me because I love the spoken word passages on that album. And it's like, it was the heaviest King Gizzard album at the time. It like feels like some vintage 70s prog rock and retro in a way, but it's not, but it's modern. And we've got fantasy and sci-fi and so many other cool concepts involved. Just everything about it is great. Han Taimi and the Murder of the Universe might be my favorite King Gizzard song. It's definitely top 5 material. And yeah, that's how it is. I know some people don't really dig the spoken word passages, but I do. I think it adds a lot to the songs. And it's very nerdy and fantasy and sci-fi, and I love all those things, and so this feels like a really cool album. I hope they would do more stuff like that, but I'm not sure if they will. We shall see. Next we have Nonagon Infinity. Nonagon Infinity is one of my favorite King Gizzard albums, and I love it, and it packs an awesome punch all the way through. But I do have to distinguish this from my favorite Giz albums, which are S tier, and this one is just outside my top 5, so it shall go to A tier. Realistically, it probably is an S tier album. It's probably their best album and a good place to start. But for me, because I've got so many other things in S tier, I don't want to like overdo it on the S tiers, you know. So it's going to go into A tier for me. But, you know, it's anything really on this list is good. Let's be real, right? Realistically, all of this is up here. That's just how it is with doing these lists, and I'm not even the best with rankings, but I know that tier lists are good for the algorithm, so please watch and subscribe to my video. Yeah, Nonagon's awesome because it's just fun, punchy, hits you in the face, the energy almost never lets up, save for a few breather moments. Anytime they play it live, it's always a good time. It's fun how you can just listen to this album on repeat endlessly, or shall we say to infinity and beyond. Yeah, not much more to say other than that. Then on the opposite end of quality, we have Oddments, which is, it's D tier, let's be real. Oddments was the first of their, shall we say, B-sides style albums. And, yeah, it's definitely B-sides on this one. Because there's just not too much interesting stuff on here. We've got Vegemite, Hot Wax are fun. Work This Time is good, but mainly the live version is what we're talking about. And other than that, there's not really much I listen to. I really skip over it a lot. And it's more just songs for fun than for being actually good. So yeah, I don't have too much to say about it. It's really not good at all. But it was a palate cleanser, so we could get better stuff afterwards, like I'm in Your Mind Fuzz. So I would say the experiment was worth it. Then we have Omnium Gatherum, which is a bit of a tough album to rank for me, but I'm gonna go A tier for that one, because we've really got everything. This is King Gizzard's White Album. In terms of just being all over the place in style. We've got the longest songs, the shortest songs, the softest songs, the heaviest songs. You know, it's a big plethora, or I guess shall we say it's more like it's like King Gizzard's physical graffiti. Yeah, that's a good comparison. So of course you've got the Dripping Tap, which is just a big, giant, epic, jammy song. This was the first time where they said, you know how we play some fun songs as the encore and we just jam them for as long as we want? Let's make it so that's the studio version of this song. And they did, and it was good. But then you've also got like leftover stuff from Butterfly 3000, like Magenta Mountain, heavy stuff like Gaia. Cookie Dog gets a couple fun jams like Kepler 22b and the Garden Goblin. There's a lot of really good stuff on here. Not every track hits with me. I'm not the biggest fan of, like, what is it? Presumptuous, Blame It on the Weather, that kind of stretch there. Not too great. Ambi gets to go full on rap mode. The Shrimp Reaper with the Grim Reaper and Sadie Sorceress. So overall, even if there's some bits that I don't fully dig, the general experience is enough to make me really love it. So it gets an A tier from me. And next we have Petrodragonic Apocalypse, or Dawn of Eternal Night, an annihilation of planet Earth and the beginning of merciless damnation, which is an S tier album for me. Yeah, no jokes there, you know. I loved Rat's Nest. They gave me another Rat's Nest, but it wasn't just Rat's Nest 2, Electric Boogaloo. Instead, they decided to make a sprawling epic of an album, touching on similar themes, but musically being different enough to be its own album. This one, they really went more into those lengthy, proggy songs, and the Tool influences. It's not that Tool owns a right to those type of riffs, but, you know, most people think of Tool when they hear them. Pretty much every song is epic track, lengthy, with so many moving parts to it, and I love that. I knew it wasn't going to be an album for everybody, but it was an album seemingly tailor-made for me, and so it's an easy S tier album for me. Might be my favorite King Gizzard album. It was Rat's Nest for a while, but this one feels like it's topped it for me, so we shall see. Next we have Paper Mache Dream Balloon, which is not personally a favorite album of mine. I'm feeling like we kind of got a very interesting spread of the albums here. But for me, Paper Mache Dream Balloon is going to go into C tier. Essentially, I've got the Giz albums I love and the Giz albums I enjoy. And that's kind of how we spread them across this list. And Paper Mache Dream Balloon's a fun concept, you know, very acoustic-y, folky, very early Beatles or the Kinks vibes. It gives me 60s vibes in that way, which I don't know is accurate, but that's how I feel about it, so that's cool. And I enjoy it, but I don't really listen to it too much. For some people, I know this is their all-time favorite Giz album, so I get it. If you do like this the most, that's cool, but not for me personally, you know. Do I like this side of Giz, or do I like that side of Giz, right? Then we have Polygon Dwanaland, which is one of their 2017 albums, and that is an A tier album for me. It's really good, and I like the style to it. The progginess, the toolness, the polyrhythms, the spaciness, the Pink Floyd sounding synths, those are all really great. It's just not at the same level as the S tier albums for me. So logically, it's an A tier album. Probably one of the albums I love the most but listen to the least, if that makes sense. There's a real cool sound they had on this album, and the style behind it is great. So yeah, A tier album for me. Then we have Quarters, where they had 4 tracks, each making up a quarter of the album, and Quarters is a B for me. Because everyone talks about how much The River is one of their best songs, and I do like that, but I like all of the songs on this album. Infinite Rise, God Is in the Rhythm, and Lonely Steel Sheet Flyer. Yeah, they're all good songs, and they're fun. Probably the earliest of the jammy era of Giz, before Ice, Death, Planets, Lungs, Mushrooms, and Lava. So yeah, I have a lot of fun with that album, and it's pretty good. I like the style, so it's a nice solid B tier album for me. And then we have Sketches of Brunswick East, Sketches of Spain, Miles Davis. I'm not too super into this album, and I really do not listen to it too much. I mean, the big question is, do you like jazz? Do you like jazz? Well, I do like jazz, but it's not really so much in this way. For me, it's a D tier album in terms of King Gizzard. And it feels odd because they did this fun collab with, what was it, Alex Breton of Mild High Club. And I had this fun idea to it. But it's a sound that they didn't really revisit after this point, apart from some Gumboot songs. It just feels like another Black Sheep album, the odd one out. So, yeah, and I don't listen to it too much, apart from the book. The book is pretty cool. But again, as we've seen, I like heavy Giz, I like microtonal Giz, not so much chill Giz. So it's not a big hit album for me, I'm sorry. And then at last, that leaves us with the most recently released King Gizzard album, The Silver Chord. Now, this tier list does not designate whether we're talking theatrical version or extended edition, as I like to refer to them as. Well, for me, I'll just go by the better of the two for me, which is the extended version, and for me, that's going to be an A tier album. Because this album really impressed me with how well they did all of the electronic stuff. I like all of the musical and lyrical callbacks to Petrodragonic Apocalypse, and the album flows very well. My only complaint, if I had one, is that I don't like that Thea in the extended version is 20 minutes compared to everything else being 10. I think that one is a little too long, and then on the theatrical it takes, it's over before it begins. But the theatrical has a nice sort of flow to it, which is good. Yeah. So overall, it's an A tier album for me. I really like it. Been digging it a lot, and I'm excited to see if we'll be getting lots of live footage from that one. That would be really cool, indeed, I think. And yeah, that's that. My King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard ASMR albums tier list video. We'll see if this one turns out alright once I get to the editing process. I have many more tier lists I would like to make and check out. So if this goes well, maybe we'll keep doing lots of those. But I think we had a quite nice distribution. The intention was to try to give us a nice curve to the data, and I think we got that. But if I'm being realistic, almost all of these are at least in the A or the S tier. This is just so we kind of balance it out. yeah, don't get too into it that much. Yeah. Anyway, hope y'all enjoyed that, and maybe I'll catch you next time with another tier list video. So, have a good night.